In public life or on social media, you've probably heard the term secular before. Originating in ancient Greece, secularism is the idea that religion should be separated from civil affairs and the state, seeking to remove or minimize the role of religion in any public sphere. A secular worldview has encouraged societies to promote virtues like freedom of speech and freedom of religion, and it has helped stop religious conflicts throughout human history. In this sense, secularism has helped human beings of all religious groups to look past their theological differences and instead recognize each other's humanity. That being said, secularism still contains a lot of faults. This is because religion has, for the most part, been pivotal in providing meaning in people's lives, and secularism wants to minimize it and in some cases throw it all away. In this video, we will look into what secularism is, its contributions to society, and the problems with it in the 21st century. I hope you enjoy this video and you're watching All Things Humanities. Let's begin with what secularism is. For the purposes of this video, we can define it as the separation of religion from civil affairs and the state. This means to minimize or remove religion in the public sphere so it is not involved in making policy. Moreover, the state or government cannot favor any particular religious belief over another. Instead, secularism aims to use reason and rationality to be able to decipher what should be policy and how we ought to live. Secularism aims to find unifying principles that apply to all people, regardless of their religious disposition. An example of this would be stealing. Regardless of whether you are a Jew, Hindu, or Christian, stealing is not something that would work in the function of society, and for this reason it is outlawed and punishable by the state. This approach is very different to looking at sacred texts of a particular religion, like we always used to, like the Bible, and building a society off that foundation. While secularism has been present since ancient Greece, it came to prominence following the French Revolution and the American War of Independence. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, two of the founding fathers of the US Constitution, implemented a form of secularism in the US Constitution by stating that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Like we've said previously, this would stop the government from favouring any particular religious group over another. In a sense, it aims to mitigate tribal conflict between groups by recognising the humanity of each other. However, the secularism of the French Revolution was a lot more anti-clerical and against established religious authority. The French opposed the church's excessive wealth and land ownership, its undue political influence, and its endemic corruption and bribery. Revolutionary France opposed Catholic influence in the country, with it briefly replacing Christianity with the deistic cult of reason. This meant that the French recognized God, but it was not the God of Christianity, which is Jesus Christ. Once again, their religious belief was deistic, believing that God did not intervene in the world and did not provide a revelation to the world. In other words, God created the world and never gave us a holy text like the Bible or the Quran. If you would like to dive deeper into deism, feel free to check out this video that I made on the topic. Separating religion and state has been a contentious issue in many societies throughout human history. While it is often viewed as a means to promote tolerance and diversity, there are several problems with secularism that must be addressed. One of the main problems with secularism is that it can lead to the marginalization of religious groups. This can occur when a society is dominated by a secular worldview and religious beliefs and practices are not given equal consideration or respect. Some of the most prominent examples of totally secular societies would be the Soviet Union and even communist China that we see in the 21st century. Both groups saw religion as contrary to the goals of communism, and for these reasons, religious people were persecuted against. If you're interested in this topic, be sure to check out this video that I made about communism and its hatred towards religion. Stigmatizing against religious groups can lead to discrimination and prejudice against religious minorities, and can also lead to a lack of understanding and empathy between different religious traditions. For many religious people, their obedience towards a particular religion is premised on faith and internal experience. For example, in Christianity and the Christian tradition, a key part of being a Christian is recognizing the miracles of Jesus and his ability to hear the prayers of people living today. This also requires faith that despite our physical understanding of the world, Jesus did perform miracles and that he is truly the Son of God. The same can be said about Muhammad and believing that the angel Gabriel appeared to him and delivered the final revelation from Allah. Secularists will often dismiss mystical and spiritual experiences when adherents of all different religions report these experiences. Even in 2018, Jordan Peterson debated Matt Dillahunty about mystical experiences and consciousness. So let's have a look at this clip.
Detector. And the fact that we can be, before we had a good understanding, we still don't have a good understanding of death and the mind and stuff. But if I'm standing here talking to you and I drop over dead, there's a clear, undeniable difference in me sitting here as an animated being and me laying there as no longer there. And so it seems a natural inference that something that about me has left. That doesn't mean that there's actually something about me, like a soul or whatever, that's left. We don't tend to think the same thing when the radio stops working or the television stops working. It's not like the man in the TV has left. It's just off. But it seems that those sorts of natural...
I don't know if you want to use that analogy, because it suggests that whatever's in the TV is coming from an external source. And you're definitely not making that argument with regards to the soul.
Well, the TV station isn't in my living room, so there's at least some external source sending it to there.
Right, but that's exactly my point.
Yeah, that's all I was going for.
You can make a case that consciousness isn't exactly in your head either, even though it's localized there.
So why would I think consciousness is anywhere other than my head?
Well, how do you account for consciousness?
Well, I'm not sure that we can account for consciousness.
This is definitely true.
But
yes. See, and that's
I have
another
no reason to think that it's beyond what the brain produces. The fact that something's mysterious doesn't mean that, well, if something's mysterious...
Consciousness isn't just mysterious. It's like really mysterious. It's the most mysterious thing.
Okay, well,
right? It's not like ordinary mysterious.
The fact that something is really mysterious to the point where I think you and I would agree that we don't have an explanation for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if there was something like that, we'll say that it's maybe consciousness. We agree we don't have an explanation, or at least a complete one for consciousness?
Or even a partial one.
Okay, sure.
It seems vaguely associated with the brain. So consciousness is
really mysterious, and you and I have no explanation for it. As human beings, we're uncomfortable with saying, I don't know. This is something I'm trying to teach people to become more comfortable with, is to say, I don't know. And so when you ask me about consciousness, my answer is, I don't know. But for other people, they're so uncomfortable with I don't know that they posit an explanation that they cannot justify. Something is untestable and unfalsifiable, and that is that there's a ghost in the machine.
It's important to remember that the original goal of secularism was to ensure that the state was separate from religion and that laws were to be made without religious beliefs. However, we have seen how secularism can be taken to the point where mystical experiences of human beings are not taken seriously despite being widely reported as mystical and spiritual. Another problem with secularism is that it can be used as a tool of oppression by those in power. In some cases, secular governments have used the principle of separation of religion and state to justify the suppression of religious expression and practice. This can be seen in the case of countries like China, where the government has been known to crack down on religious groups that it sees as a threat to its authority. After all, Karl Marx, the father of communism, claimed that religion is the opium of the people, claiming that religion provides human beings with a heart in a heartless situation. When people migrate from different countries, they often bring their culture with them, which is often tied to their religious beliefs too. In China's province of Xinjiang, a small group of Turkic Muslims seek persecution because they are Islamic and their religious beliefs are targeted by the Chinese Communist Party. Once again, the Communist Party promotes secularism, with only specific state-operated churches, mosques, and temples being allowed for worship. The famous Carl Jung and also Jordan Peterson have spoken about the continuous need for human beings to connect to religious symbols. It is deeply built into our subconscious, and there is an internal need for human beings to connect to churches, cathedrals, and mosques. Limiting this through secularism would be to crush the human spirit and produce suffering to human beings around the world. On the other hand, many secularists argue that the link between secularism and communism is false because documents like the Secular Humanist Manifesto would be contrary to the mistreatment of people that was seen during the Soviet Union. The Secular Humanist Manifesto emphasizes doctrines like developed countries providing help to poorer countries through human rights, agricultural needs, and medical needs. Another issue with secularism is that it can lead to a loss of cultural and moral values. When religion is removed from the public sphere, there may be a vacuum that is not filled by any other system of beliefs or values. This can lead to a lack of shared sense of purpose and meaning in society, which can also lead to social and moral decay. After all, the famous philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche argued that following the age of reason, God was dead, because the age of enlightenment made Christian beliefs implausible. Nietzsche also thought that many moral assumptions that Westerners and Europeans had existed within Christian belief itself, and now it had been killed. Nietzsche also thought that morality was not self-evident at all, and it was entrenched in Christianity and faith in Christ. On the other hand, secularists could argue that using reason is satisfactory enough to determine moral principles and the way to govern society. For example, if you want to determine whether murder is wrong, you would use reason to determine that murder destroys families and our own conscience, so it is best that we ought not to do it. While this is true, secularists still have to answer the question where reason and consciousness comes from and why we should trust it to make decisions. While secularism is often seen as a means to promote tolerance and diversity, there are several problems with it that must be addressed. But I'd like to turn the question to you guys. What do you think of secularism? Is it a force for good? A force for evil? What do you think? Let me know in the comments section below. But that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing and liking the video for more content like this.